Afternoon, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Isn't this gorgeous? Oh my God, look where we live. This is amazing. I'm Anne Marie, and the goal today, thank you for being here, by the way. The goal today is to have a conversation. So it's not about Swinerton, it's about a sample of the best practice of facility condition assessment. And we'd love it to be interactive. So can I see a hands of who's a facility manager or operations manager? Great. So this will be, a lot of this will be for us to have a conversation. How many of you are familiar with facility condition assessments? Great. How many of you use facility condition assessments? Exactly. So this is a place to have a safe space for conversation, because a lot of facility managers, if you ask them honestly, what's the condition of their facilities, their building or buildings, many folks will say, I don't know. And so this is a sample, this is a tool that would help you. Just to briefly talk about Swinerton, many of you are familiar with the general contracting side. Swinerton Management and Consulting is one of 7 companies under the Swinerton Inc. We have new companies. The general building side is actually 134 years old now. And our side is the professional services side. So we're not here to discuss Swinerton, we're here to help you as FMs with a sample of the best practice. Next slide. So Scott Glover is one of our project executives in the San Diego SoCal region. And do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, as said, excuse me, this was mentioned a little bit earlier. I've been in the business for about 40 years now. Thank you. The last 12 of those on the consulting side, on the professional services side, which is, as Anne Marie said, what she and I represent. This group, our professional services group, has been around for about 25, 26 years now. I joined the group up in the Bay Area and spent about 8.5 years up there before moving down to San Diego about 3.5 years ago. So again, 40 years in the business, 26 of those with Swinerton, and the last 10 or 12 of those with management consulting.
And I'm very proud to have been a member of IFMA and sat with Lydia Reyes on the membership committee. I want to do a big shout out to Lydia, and I hope she's feeling better soon. And Scott Glover will now be sitting on the membership committee helping Lydia. So we are very invested in IFMA and their success. Next slide. Okay, how many of you, safe space, how many of you FMs know the current physical condition of your facilities? Exactly. And can I ask you, again, this is a conversation, can you share with the group
Why I know my condition, my buildings are brand new.
Oh, he cheated.
Okay, so structural systems, your building envelope, mechanical, electrical, fire, life safety, roofing, architectural, parking, any other issues. These are really important, as we know, because whatever your facility is, your chief development officer, your CFO, your board, they're all going to need to know how to budget, how to allocate, when to allocate, and you're going to need to know, is something going to need to be replaced in a year, 7 years, 5 years? You know, these are really important for you as FMs. Next slide. And this is also something where, how many of you are maintaining your facilities? How many of you are looking to get out of your facilities and look for new facilities? Can you share with us?
Him or me?
Both.
Go first.
All right. Well, our company's expanding. We've been in the buildings we're in right now for about 12 years. The buildings were originally built in 1985, and they were remodeled in 2010 to 12. We are looking to lease properties, and we do have something interim But they're trying to build out about 165,000 square foot for a laboratory complex so that we can get the band back together because we're kind of spread out in 3 locations. So, yeah, we're definitely looking to move from where we are now.
Interesting.
And we have 2 new 250,000 square foot buildings. We have vacated 1 building, trying to convince senior management to vacate another. And at that point in time, we'll hopefully sell the property. We've gone through an acquisition, so they've had bigger fish to fry than the facility stuff. But, you know, what's 25 million extra in profit? You know?
Right, exactly. So existing condition of your facility, the components and systems to move forward. You know, sometimes you might have a class B building and you want to make it a class A. Sometimes you want to get out of your lease. Sometimes you want to acquire buildings. Sometimes you want to move different locations. So FCAs are really important. Next slide. And understanding the cost of short-term and long-term in your facilities and which items need to be addressed immediately, right? Is there something that's urgent? Is there something that, again, is going to need to, do you have a maintenance plan? Do you have a budget? Do you have an idea of what the building will need in 5 years, in 10 years? And how much is that going to cost? And how many of you have a capital improvement budget? I love how the hands are like this. Can you raise them again higher? And how can I ask you, how do you allocate for your capital improvement budgets? Somebody want to volunteer? But yes. In the back first, and then you.
Currently, a lot of it is money to cover deferred maintenance. So we prioritize it based on what those assets are going to have a negative effect on our business. So, sorry, I took my food for the doctor. But that's how we prioritize right now for our capital projects is what's going to get targeted in the next 1 or 2 years coming out of COVID.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so we have a capital projects department, and we submit projects to them based on the need, you know, based on improvements, based on reorganization in the company for people and space, and then you know, for replacement of roofs and things. So we submit those, but then we have to negotiate and advocate for them to you have to show the need. And not everything is approved, right? And so you have to. So some things get pushed off to the future, and while you're doing that, you're spending expense money to make repairs and such. So your budget is affected by it, and so yeah, it's basically just submit it and beg for it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, next slide. And so let me see a show of hands again. How many of you know what a facility condition assessment is? Great. Next slide. So FCAs, as you know, or may not know, FCAs aren't just for vertical. They also include water pipelines, parks, parking lots, in addition to, you know, for your schools, your city portfolios, your affordable housing, medical, commercial, and parks, and much else. Next slide. So the benefits of an FCA: assess the condition of your current facility systems, components to better understand the desired timing required of upgrades and replacements. You need to determine your budget forecast for your capital renewal for 10 years and prioritize projects for repair, renovation, replacement. Next slide. So how did these come about? You may or may not be aware that the California Community College districts in the early 2000s didn't understand the condition of their facilities and needed money from the state. And so programs to assess the community college were developed by Parsons and 3DI. And now they have a tool in addition to municipalities, in addition to your facilities, to tell their stories and request financial assistance from the state. Next slide. You want to talk about this? Sure.
So we'll get into a little bit of the technical portion of this, but we're not going to go too deep in the weeds. This is, like I said at the outset, this is really kind of an overview of facilities conditions assessments. If anyone has questions after this presentation, we'll make our contact info available, and feel free to reach out to myself or Marie and share more with you. But what this slide is showing, and this is all of these technical slides are taken from our business partner, Mocha Systems, who are spread out across the United States. The office that we deal with is their Houston office. And Anne Marie just spoke to the slide about the community college system requiring some sort of a facility conditions assessment to be able to evaluate the requests that they're getting from various community colleges. Because the colleges would individually come to the state and say, we have improvements we need to do, and we need money to do it. And they would say, and the community college system would say, specifically, what improvements do you need to do? Well, we're not quite sure. We've got a lot of stuff. We haven't really prioritized them. And how much money are you going to need to make these improvements? Well, we don't really know that either. So that ended up getting the ball rolling for Parsons 3DI to develop this program. And one of the gentlemen that we work with on a regular basis, a gentleman named Chidi Ho out of the Houston office, was with Parsons 3DI when they developed this program back in the early 2000s. So our business partner is someone who has been doing this for the last 20 to 25 years. Again, this is not a sales pitch for Swinerton or Mocha Systems. This is an overview of what can be achieved through a facilities conditions assessment. So this first slide is kind of the starting slide, and it's really a drop down of a particular portfolio. In this case, the port district here, and the selection being made, and this particular one is the main building at the cruise ship terminal. Next slide. What this the starting point here then to start evaluating your building and the various systems within the building is breaking the building down into the most important parts and pieces. Of course, roofing, envelope, superstructure, MEPs. And then when you go to this particular menu, each of these areas will have or each of these selections will have a drop down, a drop down menu as well that'll give you the various options, the various things that are included within each of those bullet points. For instance, if you go to roofing, there may be just a traditional asphalt roofing. There could be a standing seam metal roofing, TPO roofing. So in each of these systems, there will be several options available to you via drop-down menu, so you can be specific to your building. Now, these systems are generally evaluated on a gross square foot area type evaluation, and that can either be developed through when there's maybe a little bit of a lack of resources to provide local pricing. That can be those numbers can be generated from a means cost data that's regionalized to San Diego or whatever area we're speaking to. When we have the opportunity, and fortunately in San Diego, we do have the opportunity tap into our building group's estimating department, we can get much tighter numbers for the San Diego area. And I'm sure there's a lot of other programs out there that are able to do the same. Next slide. So the types of things that we're trying to evaluate, or that you're trying to evaluate with the information provided to you, is when was a particular system, a particular piece of equipment, when was that installed, and based on just the warranty information, everything, when would you imagine that there's a renovation required for that system, that piece of equipment? What's the life cycle? What is the life cycle of that system or piece of equipment? Is it already expired when we evaluate it? If it may still be running, but it should be expired at that point. And what do we do about that? Is that something that we should jump on now? Is there repair? And if there is repair needed, or just in the general course of renovating and maintaining the life cycle, when is the next renewal system due? So this is a pretty simple flow chart. There's a lot going on this particular sheet, but the flow chart itself is pretty simple. You've got a building system assessment. You're looking at the uniform list, and let's say we're evaluating mechanical equipment in this case. Has that equipment reached the end of its life, or is it very close to reaching the end of its life? If that's yes, then we head to the right on this particular flow chart, and we want to look at replacing that, of course. And it may be replacement in kind, it may be an upgraded, a more current model, of course. But if that equipment's not expired, and I'm sorry that I'm looking at the screen instead of looking at everybody here, and the answer to that is no, then we want to dive down a little bit deeper. We want to look at what is the real condition of this water heater, for instance. What does that look like? Is it rusted up? Is it having trouble with it, or is it performing well? So based on some of that information, as well as when we would expect renewal of that water heater to need to occur, then we can start plugging in these little text boxes, or these little informational boxes you see. We can start plugging in expected dates, and then expected costs will be generated off of the gross square foot costs that we've plugged in at the outset of the assessment for each of those various building systems. So that can generate for us both, when should we expect to replace this water heater? It's starting to get long in the tooth, but it's got a couple more years left. So maybe we're looking to replace that in 2024. And what should we expect to pay for that water heater in 2024? And then, if you expand that to all of your mechanical equipment, then all of a sudden you've got this report that's going to tell you that some air handling units really need to be looked at in 2026. And the value of that might be $150,000 to replace those in the building. And, on and on to develop a report, a live report that you can reference, that you can look at, that you can plan in advance up to 10 years out or even further. So next slide, please. So again, pretty busy slide, a lot going on. But this is what the screenshot would look like of an actual assessor who's out in the field looking through this. And it may be, if it's simple systems, it may be myself, it may be engineers, project managers working for me. Or it may be, if we're looking at something a little more complicated, we may have some mechanical or electrical partners with us out in the field, taking a little bit deeper look at the equipment. But again, we're plugging in a anticipated renewal schedule. We're locating where that is. We're plugging in, so the numbers are being generated off the gross square foot numbers that we were plugged in earlier in the process. And then we're taking photos of each individual item that's being evaluated and assessed as well. And this is all, you see the hands holding the iPad there. This is all happening in real time. This is being uploaded. All of the software is completely cloud-based. So the good news is that this information doesn't need to be captured and then cataloged and then sent to someone else and inserted into the report. It's all happening while someone's standing there in front of the piece of equipment, evaluating it and sending that information in. So the result of that is in pretty short fashion, pretty quick fashion, you can get your report and you can understand where you are instead of waiting, a couple of weeks or a month to receive that report.
How many of you FMs have used a reporting mechanism like this? Can I see a show of hands? And something important to ask is, who owns the data? Do you own the data? Does the software provider own the data? That's going to be a really important conversation to have because, for example, Mocha is cloud-based, and when the report in the system come up, there's a dashboard where your chief development officer, your CFO, your board, your trustees, whoever you're reporting to, it's a very easy mechanism to translate the information that you need, the repairs that you need, and when you need them, and how much is it going to cost. And this mechanism, again, just a best practice, the owner, you, the clients, own the data. So it becomes property of you and not Mocha. So that's just something to think about as you have a conversation about FCAs.
So after those last two very busy slides where it was a little difficult to see exactly what was going on, this is the result. This is what a slide would look like if you brought it up on your laptop, if you brought it up on your iPad. There would be comments entered by the evaluator. There would be some determinations made by that evaluator. And again, that evaluator for something simple might be, a general construction person. But it also, in this case, when we're looking at lighting and branch wiring, this could well be an electrical engineer who's working with us. It could be an electrical subcontractor. Someone we want to bring experts to the field when we're evaluating these, so the information that you're going to receive from this report is only as good as the information and the assumptions that go into it, obviously. So after we've evaluated buildings, evaluated pieces of equipment, evaluated systems, and then evaluated entire buildings, we can start generating a report like this. And this shows the facilities condition index, which is very simply the repair cost, which is over towards the right, divided by the replacement cost. So everything in green that you see up there, those are down in the 9, 10, 8, 5%. Some there's a couple that are bumping up against 30%. Those are, items, or in this case, those are buildings or properties. There's parks up there as well. That, although we want to know when we should start, when we need to put monies aside for renovation and what have you, we don't have imminent renovation to do here or replacement. The yellow group, is a higher threshold. And then when you get to the red, and you've got, for instance, in the middle of the sheet or at the bottom of the sheet, the top red line where it's American nostalgia, that's 89% on the FCI range. At that point, you should really consider replacing, whatever is in question here, because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to pour in almost as much money to repair something as it is to replace it. So that's really what the FCI or the Facilities Condition Index is showing you, how imminent your repairs and your cash outlays are going to be. Next slide. And then again, this is a very simple matrix that shows you the levels of priority that you need to consider. If you look at the vertical axis here under categories, health and safety, always number one. And then vital tasks, necessary tasks, that's going to be priority 2. Operating efficiency and other considerations, those are also going to be important, but a little further down the line. And then across the top at the horizontal axis, we can then start to ascertain, is that an immediate need due to health and safety or vital tasks? Is that in the next 1 to 2 years? And then we can go all the way out to 6 to 10 years and project repairs and or replacement. Next slide. So again, kind of doubling back on the MOCA plan, which is from our partners at MOCA Systems. It's a web-based application. It's cloud-based. It's maintains your facilities condition and renewal forecast. It allows you to develop some scenarios for capital planning because it's going to give you a more or less a schedule over however long you want to forecast it, 3-4 years, up to 10 years or even further. There's a lot of standard reports that are included. We didn't really look at reports here. We looked more at the input screens, but there's a number of reports that are available to you, and then customer-friendly reports can be developed as well. It's a pretty versatile system. Data can be exported into Excel, which then anybody can use in a number of different fashions. As I mentioned, the pictures and documents, they're linked to the database and they're linked to it in real time. Various levels of training are included, depending on what your needs are, how deep you might get into this data, or if you're looking at it as a more high level aspect. And then site licenses and first year supports are included as well to make sure that everything's going well for you. But as Anne Marie pointed out, this information is then your information. It doesn't belong to someone else. You don't need to go get it from somewhere at a later date. It belongs to you, and you work within the program as often and as much as you need. Next slide. So these are a sample of clients. Again, I mentioned our business partners out of Houston. So there's a couple, 2 or 3 up here from Houston, the Independent School District, Integral Medical Clinics, but also the city of Westminster and the California community colleges that we mentioned earlier, which is where this all started. Next slide. And that's really it. We wanted to present something on a little bit higher level for those that haven't really had a lot of involvement in FCAs, facility conditions assessments, so that everybody could get their feet wet a little bit. Again, if you have further questions, if you want to speak to us in further detail about this, there's reams of information that we can give you, particularly on the technical side. But you know, I would be happy, and Ray and some of our other folks that are involved in this effort would be happy to spend as much time as you'd like on the phone with you or meet with you, and you know, kind of help you through the process. If you're interested, whether you select Swinerton or you select, you know, someone that you're familiar with already. You know, again, we're trying to present kind of a neutral program today that focuses on FCAs, doesn't focus on Swinerton and Mocha.
We also presented at the FM Roundtable in November, and it was a really great conversation for FM to FMs. Some FMs are very familiar with FCAs, some are very familiar with capital planning, and some are not. And so it was just a wonderful safe space for several FMs to say, I don't know the status of my buildings. I don't know how to put together a capital campaign. And then other FMs to say, this is how we do it. These are some examples of what worked for us. These are some examples of what, you know, we needed to do differently. And that's really what this forum is about, is that, you know, for you, if you have any feedback, anything you want to add, you know, about best practices and your facility condition assessments, we'd love to hear your feedback. Any thoughts? Sir.
If we're all familiar with how inflation has affected everyone here in this room, how do you add that into your replacement costs when you really don't know whether we're going to continue to go on like this or whether it's going to flat down?
For example, we have real-time estimators that have current pricing, and our chief estimator has a pretty good handle on the market and a pretty good handle on what's going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And based on the subs and the pricing that we have seen. So, you know, in a perfect world, we can forecast for you based on what we see. And then obviously, because this is a living document, we can revisit it in 90 days, 180 days, because what you need is the most current pricing. And that's why something like this tool is a great operative for you, because you can customize it, you can update it, you can say, let's revisit this in 6 months, or I have a board meeting in 9 months, and I need to be sure that I have the current real time. And that way you can report out to your executives, this is absolutely current real time pricing.
Yeah, and as Anne Marie said, that we have one of the better estimating groups in San Diego, and you know, they're having to do these types of forecasts on a daily basis, at least a couple of years out to 3-4 years out in some cases based on the project. But I'll grant you that you know, if we're talking 8 to 10 years out, it becomes a little more challenging, and the assumptions have to be a little wider. Other questions or yes?
I'll throw something up there. I got a ton of questions. So one of the things I thought about is you're going to put all this data in there. Is that software intelligent enough to say this, devalue this stuff over time or depreciate it over time, so that it's, once you enter it, you know it's 15 years old. Next year it's 16. So now its value is much less, or its lifespan has decreased by, so that I don't have to keep going back and doing the field check.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yeah, outstanding.
Sir.
Does Swinerton work exclusively with multi-plan, or do they use other asset management?
We're in our FCA program, we're working exclusively with Mocha Plan. We're very happy with the software and the product that they have. It's been well received by clients. So we've taken them on as a formal business partner. So.
And I think the reason we've teamed with them for so long is because the software for us is easy to use. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it. And it's on an iPad. And so that's what's really important, is that for you, the client, that this information can be translatable. It's easy to use. It's easy to report out to your executives. and it gives real-time information.
And again, we find value in partnering with MoCA because, you know, some of their employees, Chidi in particular, were one of the originators of this whole program. And Chidi and his colleagues have been fine tuning this for the last 20 years or so. So we feel pretty confident in working with them.
One follow-up question. So does Mocha Plan have any sort of like additional modules that incorporate or integrate like a work order management system?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
So does Mocha Plan have any sort of modules or way to integrate a work order management system that they could work together?
I would have to get back to you on that one because I know that it kind of works hand in hand with the work order system, but I don't believe it necessarily tracks you know, the work order process. But I'll get your card afterwards. I'll be happy to get back to you.
How do you maintain the database or equipment replacements? Get replaced? Does the company go in and update the database, or you have to ask for help?
No, you would go into the spreadsheet yourself, go into the database yourself and enter that new information. Yeah, you wouldn't have to have anybody come out and do a reassessment or have anybody enter that for you.
But you get complete support the first year. So it's not like, how do I figure this out? It's, you get absolute customer service the first year at least, and then we can help guide you through whatever it is that you need.
Anybody else?
I have a question for the audience. In lieu of having these types of systems, which my company doesn't, what does everyone else currently use? Just regular Excel, or do you have like a little piece of paper in each piece of equipment? And you just do the rounds and check? Yes, probably. No, nothing?
Both and the folks who come out and assess it. Then they provide it.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you. We wanted to thank IFMA for giving us this opportunity this afternoon to speak to the group. And, you know, thank you all for supporting IFMA and for coming today and listening to our presentation. Thank you.